Of our I-Team, Phil Drexler was in New York on 9/11. His experience helped him forge a friendship with 3 local men that stands to this day. They recently talked about that time 10 years ago and how it's affected their lives since.
We were in the UBS PaineWebber training program to become financial advisors. Here I am on the left. I was living in Toledo at the time, but quickly found 3 fellow Buckeyes from Cincinnati: Richard Bayless, Doug Taylor, and Mike Agricola.
I remember the pilot saying that we had a rare type of approach where you flew right over the city, which apparently wasn't that common. And we had a great view of all of New York, but particularly the towers, obviously.
We arrived here in Weehawken, New Jersey on Sunday, September 9th, 2001, for an intense 3 weeks of training. We were just across the Hudson River from the city. As a result of our experience that fateful September, we forged a friendship and a bond that has remained.
I remember we were walking into our training. I was just relieved that I made it through the first day, and you know, walking by the receptionist, had a TV there, and they showed a picture on the news of the building burning, and looking out the window, and actually, I mean, you could pretty much see it.
At that time, nobody knew that it was a terrorist attack. And we all went down and went outside, and that was about when the second plane hit the tower.
Richard and I were standing next to each other, and we were just marveling at it. And I remember looking at you going, can you imagine what it's like inside those stairwells?
Yeah.
And just horrified. And then that's when the second plane hit the tower, and Richard and I looked at each other and said, did we just see that?
Yeah.
And I remember feeling the ground shake.
The ground shook, yeah, the ground did shake, I recall.
That's right.
What amazed me was how quickly people started pouring over into Weehawken. Because remember, suddenly that
ferries.
whole Lincoln Harbor and all of the different pleasure boats, any way you could get out of Manhattan, people were doing it.
In the weeks that followed, we agreed that our training should continue. There was no way to get everyone home. There was nothing we could do in the city, but the raw reality of being there was something we could not explain to our friends and family back home. Here's a picture I took from my hotel room window on September 12th.
Weehawken is right next to Hoboken, and they were using the Hoboken train station as a temporary morgue.
Yeah.
And so at nights, the ferry that would come right into Weehawken would bring over these body bags, and they'd go right into this panel truck. And if you were outside after 8 or 10 o'clock at night, you could just watch all these bodies being delivered into this panel truck.
As the days passed, we were able to get into the city. It was still covered in dust, and the buildings were still smoldering. Richard and I went to Wall Street. Most of the businesses were closed, but the market had opened. A defiant and proud flag sent a powerful message.
You reminded me of all the firefighters every time you'd ride a ferry or a bus or something, where everybody would just step aside and cheer.
While the rest of the world was seeing, you know, endless loops of this thing, we could just look across the river at the smoke.
Doug's wife Susan came to visit toward the end of the month with their 2-month-old baby Lauren.
She knows that she was in New York right after it, and she does understand the historical significance and what actually happened that day.
Today, Lauren is 10 years old.
My daughter was a couple weeks old at that point. I look at her now, she just had her 10th birthday.
A powerful reminder of how much time has passed. And I have 2 girls, including 12-year-old Jennifer, who is growing up way too fast. She was just 2 when I left home 10 years ago.
What they tried to achieve as far as terrorizing the population, in my mind, didn't work. Because I think most people are more patriotic, most people are more behind our country. I'm not talking about politics, but behind our country than ever before. I think I appreciate my friends and my family more than I did before.
I couldn't say it any better than that.
Some great reporting and some great reminiscences from Phil Drexler.